changed yet. There we go.
Incredible. So like I say, today we'll be talking to an amazing panel of people. We're so lucky to be able to talk to these people, and it's all about a day in the life of a UX researcher. So it's going a bit of a deep dive into what it's like being a UX researcher, some tips, some tricks, some different productivity hacks potentially. So I just want to quickly introduce Memorisely. So Memorisely is an online tech campus. We do boot camps in UX UI boot camps, UX research boot camps, and then we also have our Memorisely community, which is the heart and soul of Memorisely, and we love connecting with people all over the world. And that's why we really wanted to work with ADPList, because their vision just really aligns with us, and we're so grateful that it's brought all these wonderful people to us, and now we can do super cool events like this. So my name's Elle. I'm the community manager at Memorisely. Molly, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm the bootcamp community manager at Memorisely.
And we will be hosting this panel. We'll be doing about 35 minutes of chatting to our panelists, and then we'll go into questions. So throughout the panel, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Molly will be writing them all down. And then at the end of our questions, like the bulk of the questions, we'll go into the Q&A. And if there's lots of questions, we'll cut us speaking and we'll just go straight into the Q&A. Oh, there's no sound. Can everyone hear me? Yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, cool. Good. So I just want to quickly introduce our panel. So Rianne, I'm going to pick on you first from Memorisely. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. So hi, my name is Rianne. I am, where should I start introducing myself? I'm also a teacher at Memorisely, and I teach the UX Research Bootcamp outside of Memorisely. I'm working as a UX researcher as well, and I'm currently based in the Netherlands, but I often travel around for my work as well, but more on that later.
Incredible, thank you. Simran, do you want to go next? Introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Simran. I'm a UX researcher with Electronic Arts. In terms of my background, I have studied engineering, I've studied management, I've studied design, and eventually started working as a researcher. In the last 3.5 years or so, I've worked in a product organization, I've worked in a consulting firm, and currently I'm working with Natashia in like a hybrid kind of an organization where we act as an agency for EA products, and Natashia can speak more to that.
Incredible. Are you okay to go next, Natashia?
Yeah, I could have figured that was my cue. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody. Everyone in Europe, I hope you are staying hydrated and staying cool indoors. My name is Natashia. I'm a senior manager of research for employee and player experience. That's just a long title that says I look after a research vertical and lead a team of researchers and product designers. Looking forward to sharing how my day-to-day looks like as a research leader. Just jumping into what Simran said, we are situated in the technological function of electronic arts. So we support a lot of product teams with the areas of expertise are employee and also player experience, if that makes sense. I can go into it later when, if you all are interested.
Incredible. No, it already sounds so exciting. And Ethel, do you want to go next? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Ethel. I am a lead UX UI designer at Toronto Metropolitan University, previously Ryerson University, for anyone located in Canada. And I am based in Toronto, Ontario. I'd love to talk more about EdTech. That's sort of like my area, and more about learning experience. And I do a little bit of game-based experience. So it's so exciting to be here with this great group of panelists. Thank you.
Incredible. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this panel. Like I said before, if you've just joined, this panel is going to be all about UX research. What we're getting into, like what a day in the life looks like in UX research or being involved in that field. And so this is just going to be a very natural chit chat. We're just going to chat. So if I ask a question, I might pick on people. And then if you have any questions that are watching, then please put them in the chat. Molly, can see you typing away already. So at the end, we'll get to questions and we'll hopefully have enough time for a lot of them. So let's kick this off. So there might not be a typical day in UX, but what are some daily rituals you each work towards? Should we go? Simran, do you want to go first? Sorry for picking on you first, but do you want to share a quick overview of your daily routine where you're currently working?
Sure, yeah. So at EA, because I'm based in a different time zone as my team, I do have like a 3-hour difference. I have heads on focus time in the mornings where like I start with mostly planning my day in terms of what I'm trying to achieve during the day, and kind of do some heads on analysis work, or at the moment, like I've recently joined EA, so going through the documentation to kind of understand and get the context of how different teams work and the product area that I'm kind of focused on. And then after that, mostly towards like the later half of my day, it's kind of filled with meetings, and these meetings can vary depending on the type of conversations we might be having there. There are certain rituals that we as a team follow. So on Mondays, we'll have our weekly planning, sprint planning, to kind of discuss what we are as a team focusing on and the different research initiatives we are working towards. I think on Tuesdays, we meet as a UX team to kind of share whatever people want to share and get feedback on, give kudos, give feedback as such. And then the rest of the meetings are generally around, I guess, pairing with product owners, product teams to kind of figure out what the research priorities are going to be, what are the things that we're going to be focusing on. Sometimes it could also be, I've not done that yet at EA, but sharing back your research findings once you've kind of done the analysis. So like most of the time is like heads down research work to kind of carry out and conduct the research. And then the rest of it is basically making sure that the team is kind of aligned and everyone's like informed in terms of what we are doing for research, as well as what kind of we are finding from our research as well.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing so much. I think that's really insightful. Natasha, do you want to follow on? I know you're in the same company, so there might be some crossovers.
Sure. So my day today is vastly different from Simran. Sorry, 1 second. Just recovering from COVID here, so we've got like lingering cough and all. So I just want to take a step back, because as a research leader, you kind of look at not just day to day, you look at like quarters and you look at like weeks, right? So I plan my week before I plan my day, basically. So every start of the week, I'll figure out like what are the top 3 things that I want to achieve that week. And then I'll just plot my days around there. And, you know, like Simran said, we meet every Mondays and Tuesdays just to keep like, and Wednesday, actually, we have this team research sync every Wednesday where the researchers are just like, you know, geek out about things that we care about, or, you know, complain, vent. So for me, it's very important because since we are working remotely everywhere, right? I've never met Simran in person before. So it's very important to have that digital touch points where you are like, you know, building a community towards researchers together, so you don't feel like you're isolated, basically. So most of my job is like making sure I am clearing blockers. So Simran knows that he has my Slack, and other of my team knows that they can just Slack and talk to me if they have any questions or they realize that there's a risk that's coming up. And as a leader, a lot of your job is just trying to stay ahead and figure out, you know, what are the perceived risks that are coming up and trying to find ways to mitigate that. And of course, trying to figure out what are other opportunities you can create for your team members so that they can do the work that they're interested in. so that they can go ahead, like stay ahead and work towards like their dream job and dream set of skills, for example.
Incredible. That's so interesting. I think obviously with Memorisely, we're very keen on community, but having that that sense of community within your team is so important, and making time within the week to have time to just be like, let's talk. Like, we don't see each other, like it's all remote. So talking of remote, Riyadh, do you want to talk about your daily rituals where you're currently working?
Sure thing. And Natasha, that meeting structure of coming together with other UX researcher and just moan sounds like a really fun meeting, actually. Maybe I should introduce my team to that as well. But yeah, like Elle mentioned, I work remotely, based in the Netherlands, working for a company based in Italy. So there's luckily no time difference. My day-to-day usually consists of meetings or planning research. I, for the huge part, do unmoderated testing. Sometimes I plan live interviews as well. A lot of my time is in also reviewing sessions of unmoderated or moderated tests. So it's planning of research, stakeholder management, and reviewing research sets usually. And our week also begins with a team kickoff on Monday, and we have several touch points with UX design teams during the week as well. And on Friday, we tend to close off the week together with the UX team too, in sort of a stand-up to look forward to the meeting, to the weekend, that is. And yeah, that roughly is an overview of my week. And throughout the day, I tend to like chip into websites, read blogs, articles, being inspired, what's new UX research wise, what are best practices in the field, UX principles and things like that.
That's cool, because it's basically like you can get to like any level, but you're still constantly looking for more to learn, more resources, which is really cool to see. Ethel, are you okay to finish us off on this question? So what kind of routines do you have in place for your current work setup?
Yeah, of course. So I think that Mondays is the kickoff day for almost everyone. So we also have the kickoff meeting on Mondays with my team, where we align sort of like where we're at with projects and what our objectives are for the week. And throughout the week, that's the way we organize meetings, or even just set up like live documents where we will be collaborating throughout the week. So that's sort of like where we set all of that up. We also have a Slack channel with different teams where we share resources, for example. So because it's education, we really value sharing, as Ryan was mentioning, all of these resources about learning. If we're working on a project and we found something that could be interesting for the rest of the team, we share it there. So that's part of what we do as well. And I don't know, my days just look so different based on the project I'm sort of like working on. But it's all about a lot about planning UX research plans, or even just setting up templates to prepare for future projects. So I just try to make the most of my time depending of how projects are moving and how fast the pace it is with each one of them. So that's sort of like a brief overview.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And like you say, I think the like beauty of being in this kind of industry is the fact that like every week is like, it could be really different, but it's so good to see that like everyone has those like inbuilt routines, so that you like, no matter what you're doing, you still got like somewhere to go back to, which I think is so important. So we're going positively. Ethel, I might start with you this time, mix it up. I'm not going to pick on, I just pick it on people at random. So what is your highlights of working in the UX field, and what's the best things you think about working in that area?
Well, I think that the thing that I enjoy the most is knowing that I am working to make a positive impact in how people learn, at least in my industry. So it's all about doing research around how we can improve programs, how we can improve learning objects, and we can improve all of that. And knowing that we do that through understanding what learners have as expectations and what I don't know, like sort of like discovering the best way for them and trying to bring up opportunities and bring up solutions that align with that is just fulfilling. Even just having like debrief sessions after we implement something new and listening to what people say about, hey, because of this, I made a new friend in my class, and just like listening to that comment makes my day, because it's like, well, we worked so hard on this project. It could be any different project, and looking at those, at the impact of that is just fulfilling.
Yeah, that's incredible, especially working in education, like being able to find like connections and stuff. That's so cool. Rianne, do you want to tell us your highlights of working in UX research?
Yeah, of course. Well, traditionally, I have a design background. So I started as a graphic designer and slowly realized I was asking too much questions. And what I really like about research is that you can keep asking the questions without always needing to answering them. So I can just jump into any meeting and start asking, okay, did we ask certain things to our users? How did we validate this and this part of the redesign? And based from those questions, you can start this investigation into learning more. So I really like that part of asking the questions, and it's a sense of fulfilling my own curiosity in a way as well. So that's what I get the most energy from doing research.
That's incredible. That's so true. Like if you're currently a designer asking a lot of questions, then 100% look at this. It's like having that excitement about being curious is like such a like good skill. So like we always talk about soft skills, but having curiosity is such a good skill to have in UX research. I think we're just going backwards from last time. So Natashia, do you want to tell us your highlights of working in this kind of field?
Yeah, I think there are two things, two highlights for me every day. The first one is, like how can we influence human behavior? That's the basis of UX design and the basis of UX research, right? Because we're improving the experience for people to accomplish tasks via tech. And very often it's really, really interesting to see, like, if you do something and you are successfully influence that behavior, whether good or not, that's another conversation altogether. But it's really interesting, like just little tweaks and little things that you find during research, you could actually influence human behavior. The second one is just observing human behavioral patterns. I think I'm secretly in love with psychology, so it's all about human behavior for me. And it's been like really interesting every time, like, it's always a pleasure to like get surprised and have my hypothesis debunked by the research. It's like a learning for me, basically. That's what research is.
So sorry, I just hit the wrong thing instead of unmute. But no, thank you. It's so interesting. I think it's so nice to have like conversations about the highlights of your job. Like you should all go away and think about them, because it's so nice to be able to be like, oh, I do this job and I'm really passionate about doing it. It's really nice to do. So Simran, do you want to bring us up on this question? Nice positive vibes before my next question, which is going to be about challenges. So let's keep this positivity up for one last
definitely. I think I kind of agree with everyone here, like being curious, asking a lot of questions, understanding about human behavior, kind of having an impact to your work. But I think for me, what drives me to do all that is making sure that I kind of also realize that I am the advocate for the user. Like we are the people who are actually going to bring their voice to our product teams, to our service teams, to make sure that the products and services that we're designing are not harming people in any way, or making sure that they are going to be useful for them, fulfilling their needs, and not necessarily taking advantage of folks in a negative way. So I think being able to be in that position and kind of advocate for users all the time, I think that's what really drives me to do the work I do.
incredible. I've literally just written down the quote, the advocate quote. You'll be seeing that on Memorisely Instagram very soon, because that's an incredible point of view. Definitely. I think sometimes you look at it from a different perspective, but that perspective is incredible. So I think we'll skip the challenge question because I don't want to bring down this good mood. So a lot of people from Memorisely, especially, it might not be the same in ADPList, but we've got a lot of junior designers that are really trying to get into this exciting industry. And there's a lot of noise in this industry. There's a lot of different communities, which is an incredible thing to have, but it sometimes gets really overwhelming. What do you think is the best way to navigate this space, trying to get in there? And have you got any tips of becoming a UX researcher? Simran, we'll start with you.
Sure. Like, I think for me, my journey was like that, where I had to kind of go through this noise of figuring out my passion for research. And I think the first thing I would say is, like, do it for the right reasons. Like, don't get into UX research or UX design because it's a hot market and there's a lot of jobs available. Do it because you're really passionate about that. I think I spend a lot of time figuring out why I'm passionate for UX research and UX as a space in general. So, like, try to have conversations with other folks, like be your mentors through ADPList, or even the UX community that is locally available to you, and kind of through those conversations, understand what is it that drives you to working in UX and UX research, and then kind of come with a plan of action towards how you're going to grow your skills as a researcher. So getting into the industry is two pieces. One is growing your skills, and that's I think a lifelong journey. Like, you can always learn something new. So figuring out what that kind of path looks like, what are the first few things you're driven towards, and looking towards growing those like foundational skills for what are needed for research is one thing. And the other thing is figuring out what kind of opportunities are out there and how to prepare for the basic grind of getting in a job offer in the industry, which, like, interview in itself is a skill, and interviewing for jobs is something that comes with practice. So making sure that you're putting enough effort towards preparing yourself by putting time into your resume, your portfolio, getting feedback, and practicing for interviews, practicing for case study reviews is something that you would want to also spend time towards working as you're trying to get in.
Definitely, yeah, that's such good advice. Natashia, do you want to give your advice?
I echo, Simran's point 100%, especially because there's so much noise, right? Like what you said, Al, it's just, it's really difficult for you to stand out from the rest. So leverage like communities such as ADPList, because like it's so easy now to just like schedule time with a mentor in a company that you're interested in. Learn from them learn from their journey. How do they get their foot in the door? Learn from the journey. What does success as a UX researcher looks like in that company? So the more data you collect, the more you can inform your approach. I'm such a geek, so like UX research your life. I think that's the whole my whole answer to that question. It's like figure out like what are the different approaches that you can, and experiment those approaches, collect the data and iterate from there, because there's no right way to approach this. Every one of us is different. Every company has like different requirements to what they look for as a UX research. But what you can do as a UX researcher is UX research that and experiment around it. That was the first thing. The second one is to, again, network. A lot of the jobs that I have had so far are all through network, and all are through just keeping and building that relationships with people in the industry. I know this is old school, but that's how we did it then, and that's have brought me to where I am today. So it's hard, everyone. Just gotta put a lot of like grease and tears and sweat and making that correct like strategy and moves through like the data that you collect yourself through your life experiences.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point of view that I've never thought about. Literally, UX research, you're way into UX research. That's an incredible point of view. Thank you for sharing that. Ethel, do you want to talk a little bit about getting into UX research and any tips you've had?
Yeah, of course. First of all, great, Natasha. I really think that's a great advice. about UX research. But secondly, I also would recommend people who want to start or who are curious to start in UX to just do it in a way, because I feel there's a lot of self-doubt sometimes of like how complicated it is to get into the industry, the skills that you need, and all of that. So there's no perfect UX researcher. That's not a thing. I don't believe it's a thing. I think that the beauty of UX research is that we are constantly iterating and constantly testing. So even that's part of getting into the industry. Like, go to do case studies, do research, get excited about the work that you're doing. And I think it's also important to find what really makes you tick in a way, because the thing about UX is that it's so broad, and there are so many fields within it, that there's a place for everyone, I believe, or almost for everyone. So I think that exploring and asking questions, and yeah, as everyone was mentioning here, ADPList is a great platform for that. I've had a lot of chats with like junior designers who are trying to get into the industry, and just speaking to mentors, showing your case studies, asking questions, networking as well. It's so valuable to start building these connections, and to just like get your foot in the industry. So that would be my advice.
Definitely. I think, like Natashia said as well, networking is so important. And from my point of view, it's never been easier to network in this industry and in like the current environment. There's so many communities and different spaces that you can network, even if you don't want to go into a community. Like even on LinkedIn, you can network there, which is such a good skill to have anyway. But definitely, and it's good to talk to people from companies and because you've got to know that a company needs to be right for you as well as you being right for that company. So talking to people from companies is such an important thing. You're interviewing, but you're also interviewing them at the same time. So don't let people have all the power. Rianne, you've been a TA at Memorisely. You've helped people into their careers. Any wisdom for us?
Yeah, we've already shared quite a lot of wisdom. Two things I would like to add to this is one, like showing that passion and motivation to go into UX research is really the key driver into getting into the industry as well. So if you're able to show that through case studies or work in volunteering somewhere or doing a case study for maybe friend or family, it's a good place to start. And also, secondly, I would say maybe look for unconventional ways of getting into the industry. For example, how I went into UX research was not via any boot camp or doing a psychology study or anything. I transitioned via work experience. So every role I've had in the past was either graphic design, visual design, then UI, then UX design, and then UX research. So every step I took a specialization in a sense. And it also boils down to that passion, and within every step that you think about what do you want or which direction do you want to go into. Also tapping into that network, because that's also hugely important too. But looking maybe into unconventional directions is maybe a good way also to make yourself stand out from that crowd. But it all begins with that positive energy that we like with Memorisely, and being passionate about something.
Definitely. I think that is some incredible advice there. And it's a good job this is recorded, because I feel like people just need to have all that in their like pocket. If you ever go for a job interview in UX research, then definitely listen back to this little section of this panel, or remember it, because that is so true. And you do really have to be passionate. The amount of time you spend at your job, you have to be passionate about what you do, and it should be something you enjoy, which is, you can clearly see that everyone on this panel has such a passion for the job they're doing it. So it's a good tip. Molly, question-wise, I have seen a lot of questions come in. Should I ask one more question and then we'll open the floor to Q&As?
Yes, let's do that. That sounds good.
Incredible. Okay, what question should we go for? I'm going to go for staying motivated and productive. So day to day, how do you stay productive during the day? Do you have any tips or tricks? Do you have any ways that you organize yourself to make sure every day you're set up to be productive and motivated in your role? Rianne, we'll go backwards. You go first.
All right. Yeah, that's I kind of accepted for myself I cannot be productive for like the full 8 hours of a day. So accepting that one is a big step. So it's taking small breaks in between as well. And this is a personal thing that I do. I fold like little cranes, like origami cranes, as a way to like zone out for a bit and then jump back into work. So I have little rituals during my day to break up my thoughts, because UX research is such a mental activity and it takes you a lot of like brain power to do this job. I find by the end of the day I can be like drained mentally, and sometimes breaking up my day into these little chunks and just do something else for a little bit before I jump into reviewing another UX research session can really help not only motivate myself again, but also like getting in a certain headspace to jump into another session, because I'm an introvert as well. If I make sure I don't plan more than 2 usability interviews in one day, because I know I will be mentally drained by the end of the day after talking to people for like 2 hours in a row. Even if as a UX researcher, you usually only do 20% of the talking and asking questions and you just let the other person reply. But even because as an introvert, you still need to like regain that energy in a way. And I do this with like folding origami or making like wristbands out of yarn or I don't know what. And I feel completely fine doing this during or in between my work hours. And this really helped me in them being more productive in those interviews and the rest of my day.
Incredible. Well, next workshop we're going to do is definitely going to be Rianne showing us how to all fold a beautiful crane, so we can all have that up our sleeve. That's amazing. Ethel, do you want to speak a bit about your productivity, your motivation?
Yeah, of course. Well, I have to say I agree with Rianne that it's very hard to be productive like for 8 hours straight. I don't even know if it's possible, but I also need to take some like breaks throughout the day. Sometimes it also depends on how dense some of the projects are, or how dense some of the research gets. So sometimes even just like going out for a walk, that's super helpful for me. Just getting some air, clearing my thoughts, and then coming back and it's like, okay, let's do this. That's also helpful. And just I don't know, I organize some of my tasks just with sticky notes, so very old school maybe, but like my monitor is just filled with sticky notes, and it helps me to sort of like organize my thoughts sometimes. And just having like my binders and notebooks close by, because sometimes that's how I map out some of the problems, and then it's for me easier to go back and just work on the computer. But I do need to have like both the physical, like where you write and draw, and then going back and going to the digital again.
Incredible. Yeah, I think it's so true about having a notebook. It's like you work in this really fast growing industry, and then I've got a notebook with me right now, so I am very much team notebook. Natashia, do you want to follow up from that?
I love all the rituals that you all do. It's like a matter of figuring out how to hack your happy hormones so that it gives you energy. I love that, because it's totally not possible for every one of us to be productive for 8 hours a day. And I kind of read a study about that. I think the most realistic is actually only 4 hours a day, and then the other 4 is just us trying to figure out how to get productive and motivated. Just like putting on like, you know, all how else you can hack your happy hormones. It's one important ritual that I do is I pepper my day with tasks that gives me energy. So like, let's say, you know, I have a particular hard day, like I need to be doing financial forecasts, something which I don't really enjoy and drain my energy a lot. So I'll make sure that I have work tasks or like, just like, you know, tasks that hack my happy hormones that will bring the energy level up. So for me, like for Rian, it's folding origami. For Ethel, is go for a walk. For me, it's just having like ADPList mentorship talks. And I try to figure out, my really work heavy energy draining days. I'll figure out what is it that gives me energy. And then I'll just like pepper my day with it. So I stay motivated, I stay full of energy, and I'm not drained, and I'm like completing my tasks.
Incredible. These are so, I feel like tomorrow we're all gonna just feel like so much. It's tomorrow's Friday. We just feel like, oh, we only need to work 4 hours of to get these happy hormones going. Simran, do you have anything to? Oh, sorry.
One more thing that I do: if you have a pet, or if you have, a child, and sometimes just getting that oxytocin is really, really healthy for you. And besides, that's another way for them to contribute to the household, right?
Incredible. That's such a good point of view. Simran, do you have anything you want to add to this question?
No, I think first of all, I agree with everything that everyone said. Like, I have a pet as well. I go for long walks. I try to like build hobbies. Like for you, it's origami. For me, like I tend to go towards like learning something new. Like right now, I'm into sketching, for example. So I just would do that to step away from like anything that allows me to switch my brain off and switch my thoughts and just like be in an activity that completely I can be engaged in. I try to do that. The other thing is like for productivity, for me, I really like notebooks as everyone else does. I generally use a productivity planner to kind of really put out like the key tasks, 2 or 3 tasks that I really want to try and get done during the day. And like for me, if I get the first task done, it's a success. Like that's what my criteria is, and the rest of the tasks in my list are all bonus. And the other thing is like as I'm doing that process, I also try to see like how much context switching is involved. And the way I'm planning my day, I try to not have too much context switching involved in my day. So if like I'd rather divide my week that way. It's like, okay, first half of the week, I'm going to try and focus on this high priority task. And the second half is going to be maybe this analysis that's maybe not super high priority. So that's another thing that keeps me kind of energized and motivated. And lastly, making sure that I'm eating on time and I'm having enough water. I think in the digital world, sometimes you just get so zoomed into our devices that we forget those basic needs of like making sure that we are staying hydrated and eating on time. So I try to make sure I have rituals around that as well.
That's such a good point. It's a same like when you're so like passionate about what you're doing and you really like genuinely enjoy what you're doing, you're like, oh, I've not had lunch yet, and you sort of build that into my day. So that's such good. All of everything that everyone said, I've just been like, God, this is incredible. So thank you so much for answering these questions. And I hope everyone watching got the same enjoyment as that I did out of listening to you all. But we're going to go on to this mega Q&A, Molly, which I have seen coming in, which is incredible. So do you want to kick us off with that?
Yes. So we have had a ton of questions coming in. So basically what I've done and how I'm going to do it, because we've had so many questions coming in and we only got about 15 minutes left, if people have like put in a question and then other people have commented they have the same question, those are the questions I'm going to start with. So they're not going to necessarily go in the order that they came in. I'm just going to go with the ones that a lot of people were interested in having answered. And then if we have time, then I'll start kind of going in chronological order. But thank you guys so much for sending in all of your questions, because there is a lot. So the very first one that a lot of people had comments on was, what does a good UX research portfolio look like, and how does it differ from a UX design portfolio specifically? If anyone feels comfortable about answering that first, you can just take off your mic and hop on in.
I can go.
I don't want to just call on people and be like, oh, I don't know. So you guys go.
I can go. I definitely, I think in the recent times, I've been doing a lot of portfolio reviews. And I think one thing I noticed, especially people coming from academia or like not having enough industry experience, is like not connecting the dots that well, like making sure that whatever you did, connect those dots from like why you did that, justify your reasons. Because there's, again, no right way or no one way of doing good research. So like making sure that you have your rationale really well defined and it shows very clearly in your process. You're able to speak to that, speak to other alternatives you took and why you decided on a certain direction is really important. The two things that I always advise people is like, even if it's a case study that was not done in a business context, specifically if you are writing case study for jobs in the industry, you want to make sure that you can think of the business context in which it could be applicable and connect that to your research objectives. Your business objectives should always be connected to the research objectives. And the other thing that you would really want to highlight, again, going back to those business objectives, is that how did your research have an impact? Like what kind of decisions did your research led to and inform the business, and like making sure that you close that full loop in your case studies is something I always advise people to do.
100% what Simran said. That's why I hired him. So, so everybody, if you need tips on what great portfolio is, schedule time with Simran on ADPList. The two things that impressed me about Simran portfolio was that impact, right? If you think about it, where are we situated? UX research is situated in a product development team. And what does a product development team do? We bring business and revenue to the company. So whatever research that you're doing needs to link back into that business goal and have like a justification about why you chose a particular method. Why is this, answering that particular business goal, and how is it helping push that business goal? That's the first number. The second one, impact, is very important. Not only as a hiring manager, it's always a risk for us to hire people. We also have a set of business objectives from a manager point of view. Why do we need to fill in this role and stuff like that? So showing that you have tangible impact kind of built your reputation as a researcher, and also, giving that hiring manager how you could actually de-risk their business objectives by hiring you. So that's totally a, hiring manager point of view on that.
Amazing, amazing. Anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, the only thing I have to add to this is what I would love to see in research work usually is, how did you make the research insights that you've gathered actionable for the teams? Because what we often forget is, what I love about research as well, is that it's not your goal necessarily as a researcher to learn about users. It's your goal as a researcher to bring those insights from users to the teams that action on it and optimize then the web experience. Or sometimes I view it that you're the middleman between the business and the user, or the user and the UX team. So how efficient or how well are you able to convey those insights? And I would love to see that if you made those actionable within your portfolio, and if you can communicate that, all the better, I would say.
I would just jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I think that the last thing I would add is having a section maybe at the end of the case study, just with some key learnings, because even if some of the case studies that people develop are like from a bootcamp or just from academia, knowing that they went through the whole research and they had the experience and they got some actual learnings out of that, so that they could apply that for future projects. I think that showing that it's also very valuable, because it shows how you're thinking about the problem and how you're thinking of how you can apply these learnings for the future. And if you're hired, how you can bring that to the team. So I think it's also important to have there.
Amazing, amazing. So going off of that a bit, I know from what I was seeing in the chat, we do have a lot of people who are looking to become UX researchers. So a big question that people wanted answered was, do you think it is possible to break into a UX research as your first role? If you've completed a UX, UI, or UX research bootcamp and don't have a background in the research or in some other field. So I guess that kind of plays into with your portfolio. How can someone who's brand new, who's maybe done a boot camp, show off their portfolio to be able to get a role? And is it possible to get a role as a UX researcher off the bat?
I would think it's possible. I've hired people who are kind of fresh off boot camp. But one thing that's, that set them apart was the fact that they went outside and find freelance and do their own side projects. Because the thing that you learn at bootcamp, no offense to like Memorisely or like any other bootcamps out there, nothing beats like personal experience or like working on real research problems, working with real clients and working with real, product development team. And you could actually create that environment yourself if you go outside and find freelance or be a vendor to like another company. There are a lot of other companies out there who hire freelancers or vendors first before they turn, full time. So that's also one way to get ahead and try to do that. But showing that you have a set of problems and showing how that you have experience working in the real world is actually really, really important, because I can't train you soft skills. Soft skills are things that you pick up along the way through your experience. I can train you in your hard skills and software knowledge, but not soft skills. I don't know if anyone else have any addition to that.
I mean, I think for me personally, I was just gonna say is like, yes, getting freelance work or real work experience is really important. Like for me, my first real work case study came out of a hackathon. Before that, I was learning things on my own and working on hypothetical scenarios, but that wasn't really getting me any jobs. And then like making sure, I think, you're networking with the right people, finding the right opportunities too. Like, there's, I think with the growth in the UX research space now, there's a lot of like co-op, internship opportunities, apprenticeship opportunities available. So I think, yes, working with the real world is one thing, but also making sure you're constantly communicating your passion for the space and why you want to work in that space and how do you see yourself growing in that space is also extremely important, because like a potential hire especially someone who's a newbie, they want to hire someone who sees that they want to make a long-term career in that space and not necessarily someone who's just trying it out for a few months and figuring out whether they want to continue or not. So I think that's really important as well.
Amazing. I know we only have a couple more minutes, so I'm going to do it on the flip side for people who are working. There was a couple of questions that came in. One of them was, I'm having trouble getting my company to value research, especially user interviews. They want personas, but just personas based on stereotypes and not actual interviews with users. How do you get a startup to value the research? So on the flip side, if someone is working in it. So we were covering both.
That's a really tough question indeed. And I don't work in a startup, so I don't know if anyone else here has any input on that side, but I was the solo researcher on my UX research team for over a year. So recently we hired a new UX researcher, actually this last month. And it took me almost a year to start validating the value of UX research within the different teams in my company. And the hardest part was that it still came a lot down due to connections and networks within your company. So how are you working together with the teams? How are you showing the impact that the research has? And it's what I realized a lot is to keep talking and keep spamming them with that inspirational UX research article, like having that inspiration channel in your Slack, for example, is a really good tip. And I used to like bombard the UX team whenever they were talking about a different functionality or section. I would comment in their Figma files even with best practices and UX research insight, or even comments from unmoderated tests or live interviews that I did. And so I tried to break it up into these small chunks. And then once people started to realize, oh yeah, these snippets are valuable, maybe we need to do anything more in building up research from the bottom up, so to say. But yeah, anyone else have any more insight on that startup phase, then go ahead.
Well, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
Thank you. No, just from the startup background, I would say that I agree with you, Rian, in that it is important to show the value that UX research can actually have in the design and the impact that it can sort of like give into the business and the industry as well. Even, I don't know, like in my experience, it was more about asking like, let's try this, even if it was for a small project, and just see sort of like what the impact it is after we completed like a small set of user research, and comparing that to other projects and showing the actual value and showing that to the rest of the team was great, because that's how you inspire people to be like, hey, this is valuable, we should be doing this more. We discover all of these things, and just by doing these interviews, right? So I think it's a great advice.
Yeah, I would echo both Ethel and Rian, but the most important thing is that the fastest way to show value is to actually attach your results to a measurable metric. That's the fastest way. As soon as you show to the business that user research help push that numbers or help meet that business goal, you're in. Get them addicted to success. That's the best way to like bring anyone along into like your, you know, your advocacy of the user. That's like the best way, and it's true in most anything, right? Who doesn't want to have successes under their belt?
Very true. Very, very true. That is those are some really great advice. Elle, I wanted to ask, we only have about 4 minutes left, and there are a lot more questions. So how do we want to, do you think, go forward with the next little bit?
I was just thinking this. Okay, so we've got options and anyone can pitch in. So I was just going to quickly close up. I really want to get a fun screenshot so we can all say that we came to a really incredible event that our speakers have all put on for us. It's been incredible. I'm sure you'll all agree. But I was thinking, you've got people from ADPList, which is incredible, and people can book time. So it might be better to do it that way if you've got a burning question. Or alternatively, from Memorisely's standpoint, we're more than happy to keep the conversation going in our community Slack or on social. So if you have any questions, then please send them through and we can send them on. But I think the best way is to use ADPList and book in those times and get that one-on-one questions. I think that's going to be really good. What do you think, Mom? Think that's good?
Yep, I think that sounds like a great solution. So that way people can get more one-on-one time. So I know everyone had such great questions. Thank you so much for submitting so many great questions. And also thank you to all of our panelists for, giving such great insights.
Honestly, incredible. Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to every single one of you. We've learned stuff about Rian that we didn't know. We've been working with Rian for years. We didn't know she was folding cranes during all our meetings, but incredible. It's been an absolute pleasure. But it would be a crime. It would be a Memorisely crime if we had an event and didn't take a screening. So if you would also be kind, to put your cameras on and we'll just take a quick screenshot for our social. Me and Molly, I'm sure everyone that's been in an event with us before, are partial to a peace sign during every screenshot. It seems like the natural hand position for us.